So now that we've added in our scrolling background and made it repeat, we are ready to add in our obstacles. So you're going to click on this button first to find the obstacle that you would like, and there are some folders so you can look at that. There are also little objects that you can choose, and I think I'm going to stick with this one right here. So I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to download. And going back into my side scroller, I'm going to go and I'm going to find that and add it in to my assets window. And now that I've got it, I want to right click on it and create the new texture atlas. And then I need to click one more time and create the sprite atlas. From here, I'm ready to go ahead and add it into my image. So now that it's in there, I'm going to focus on it. And I think that I could probably scale that up a little bit from what I'm trying to do. Go a little bit more, and then I am going to zoom out a little bit. I do need to move it up front and up a little bit higher. And so we'll start with this one. We want to add a component, and this is going to be our rigid body. We want to make it, when you add your rigid body, you want to change it to dynamic. And we're going to add another component, and this is going to be a collision. And this is where you want to find the right type of collision for this one. And I am going to use a sphere, and then I want to zoom in on that. So I'm going to click my focus, and this is where I can play with the radius of that sphere. So something a little bit like that would work. So I'm going to duplicate the second mine, zoom out just a little bit, and I am going to lower that just a little bit. And now I have a second one, and this is where the player has to swim through those two things. And so I'm going to come back over, click on my root. I'm going to click on the plus to add an entity, and I can call this mine or mines. There we go. And I'm going to take these two and I'm going to drag them right in there. So before I go any further, I'm going to do a little bit more cleaning up, and I'm going to click this plus and I'm going to add an entity, and I want to make it on the root. I'm going to title this as game. And once I have that, then I'm going to take everything that I have here and I'm going to drag it right into that. So now I can start out with a fresh game version of my project. So now that we have our mine in and we have them combined like this, we can go ahead and we are going to put these on a layer, and these are going to be on the mid-ground. Especially if you're using pipes, like the Flappy Bird game, that way it would go behind this ground here. So both of these we want to make mid-ground. And if I drag this down as mid-ground, it should go behind that ground down there. So that would be this one. And again, it is foreground. So it should go behind that. Right now it doesn't look like it's doing it, but that's what the plan is going to be for that. So on this mine right here, I am now going to go ahead and I'm going to duplicate and I'm going to call this mine 2. And then I'm going to move these over, and I'm going to move it up. I'm going to duplicate another set, and again moving them over. And in this case, I'm going to move them down slightly. So I probably want, I think, about 5 to get started. Oh, let's go back and name this 3. Let's go back and name this 4. And we'll duplicate one more. Call this one 5. Slide it over. And there we have that. So I have my mines, and my player is going to go ahead and swim through them. Our problem is if we click launch, as I'm swimming, they are stationary. So we need to figure a way to get them into our game. I am going to take this first mine right here, and I'm going to click and drag it into this background. Once I have it in this background, watch what happens. So that starts to scroll. If we take the rest of these and we add them into our background, now they all are scrolling. The problem comes in is that we don't have them scroll for both backgrounds, and it doesn't scroll in each direction. So I'm going to come over and I'm going to come back in. Actually, first I'm going to add an entity, and this entity I'm going to put into my background so that it's down here, and I'm going to drag all of these into that to make it a little bit easier. And then what I can do is I can move all of them together right now. So I need to start from the get-go with something that looks like this, and I'm just going to go ahead and shut this background off so I know how far over to go. So I'm going to duplicate all the way over. And pressing Command D or Control D on the keyboard. We'll get something that looks like that. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, and then I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to drag this into this other background down here that we unenabled. If I go now to this background and I re-enable it, you're going to see that there's my background, but I want to grab this new entity and I want to slide that over just so that I get something that looks a little bit like this. Now, I can also go and I can rearrange the height of each one of these depending on what I'm expecting to do for this project here. So you can kind of get an idea of what we're looking at doing. And looks like I forgot to rename them here. So I can come back and do that at a later time. So I'm just trying to add some difficulty with some of this and how the character is going to swim. So there we go. So if I go back to my launch, we can see that the obstacles are going just fine and they are moving through just the same way. One thing you will notice is I do have a little bit of a jump when this line gets right to the edge. So I can also fix that just by clipping it into my camera, and I'm gonna change the ortho height just a little bit. So I'm just zooming in. And now if I come back into my launch, let's see if we see that. I'm gonna refresh. And here comes our edge. So let's see, we'll watch that as he goes across. We still have a little bit of it. So we'll zoom in a little bit more. Let's try that. And we're gonna refresh. I'm going to watch that edge again, and that seemed to work really well. But our player swims off the screen, and that's not great for a game. We have no way to reset unless we refresh. So we're going to work on some of those things coming up in our next project.